How did you get to New York City?
How did I get to New York City? It's very simple. I always wanted to live here. Most people, I feel like, have a reason why they moved to the city, like their career, like they want to be an actor or, I don't know, or stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
But no, I just always wanted to live in the city. I have a lot of family who live on Long Island, and I would always drive past the city on the Verrazano Bridge to get to Long Island, and I would like gaze at it romantically. And I would, as a kid, I'd be like, someday I'm going to live there. And then as a teenager, I made a promise to myself. I was like, I'm going to live in New York City when I'm in my 20s. And I turned 28 and I was like, it's now or never. I got to do this.
What was the appeal?
Yeah.
What was the appeal of the city?
Gosh, I don't even know. I think I grew up listening to a lot of Frank Sinatra. I think I just had this super romanticized version of it in my head. And I do remember my mom and I came up for a day to try to find me an apartment. And we got the bus or the train dropped us off in Hell's Kitchen area. And it was just like not a nice area. And we got out of the train station and I was like, maybe I don't want to live here.
So 28 comes around.
Yeah.
And it's now or never. Where were you then? What were you up to?
I was living in Virginia, Northern Virginia, where I'm from. And I was living just outside of Washington, D.C. in a town called Alexandria. Or I guess it's a city. My bad. And it's so funny. Like I moved into this huge apartment. It was like 1,000 square feet. And I lived there for 2 years and I never bought any furniture for it. Like I had a bed and a couch and a TV. And I never moved in because I always had it in my head, like, I'm not going to be here long. I don't want to be here. But that didn't answer your question. What the fuck was I doing back then? I was working, on a defense contract for the Department of Defense. And yeah, luckily I told them I'm moving to New York. If you want to keep me around, I'm going to have to work remotely. And they were on board with it. And so I got to take that job with me up here. And that was really convenient because it allowed me to settle in for a while and not worry about money or anything, finding a new job. So yeah, that's how it happened.
What was it like to be in New York in your late 20s?
In my late 20s, I kind of wish I had gotten here in my early 20s because I was already through the phase of my life where I was like a party girl, you know? Being here in my late 20s kind of felt like I need to be responsible. Like I'm not going to start a cocaine habit now.
Never too late.
Yeah. Surprisingly, I've never done cocaine. It is crazy how accessible it is.
You can be honest. It's fine.
I would do it if I wanted to.
Okay.
I don't know. It's never had any appeal to me, but I will say in Virginia, never once was I offered cocaine. And now it's like every outing you go to in New York City, like at least 5 people ask you if you want a bump. But, yeah. That's what it's like. That's what it was like being here in my late 20s.
Were you interested in the arts at that time? Was that on your radar whatsoever?
I did some acting in college. I had a theater minor, so I did some like little theater shows here and there. And I always said that I wanted to be an actress, but I wasn't one of those people who like was willing to go through all of the, the struggle of making it actually happen. So I would say that I've always had an interest in the arts, but I just didn't really have the dedication to it, I guess. Now that I'm doing stand-up comedy, I feel like that was always what I was kind of meant to do, at least on a hobby level, like something that fulfills me. So I'm more inclined to go after it and go through the struggles. with stand-up comedy, just because I feel like I connect with it a little bit more.
Were you regarded as a very funny young woman or girl when you were a kid?
I was a very shy girl. But like also a little bit of a troublemaker. It's so strange. Like I'd be like hiding behind my mom's leg at the grocery store, like not wanting to talk to the cashier. But then I was also kind of a troublemaker at school. Like I taught everybody. My dad was very open with me when I was a kid, and he taught me all the curse words when I was like 4.
Child abuse.
So yeah, basically. So like I knew all the 4-letter words when I was like in 1st grade. And I remember he told me, he was like, we were going through all the curse words. Like he was like just giving me a glossary of curse words, and I'm in 1st grade. And we got to the C word, and I was like, it's crap. And he's like, yeah. He was like, well, there is another C word. And I was like, please tell me. And so he told me, he told me cunt. He told me what the word cunt meant when I was 6.
Did he point at your mother?
That's good. That's a good one. No, but I did tell everyone in my 1st grade class about the word cunt. So yeah, I mean, I was shy, but also a troublemaker.
Did that continue throughout elementary, middle school, high school? Were you always kind of shy but fucking around?
No, at some point I kind of shifted back into like a model teenager. I don't know. I was like a straight A student, and I didn't party or I didn't have like my first drop of alcohol until I was like in college, basically. Yeah, I didn't mess around with any of that.
Did the troublemaking part of you just go underground or disappear entirely?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I feel like she's still in there.
I feel like to be a stand-up comedian, you have to be you got to have a little of that in you.
Yeah. Yeah, she could definitely come out. I think she comes out a little bit on stage with some of the jokes I tell. Yeah, some of my jokes are not for everybody. I've got some pretty raunchy jokes that I tell on stage.
When you were in college, did you ever try comedy? Were you ever involved in that world whatsoever?
No, I briefly tried improv, but I wasn't good at it, and I didn't really like it. I've always kind of been drawn to comedy. Like I love, watching funny movies, and my friends have always told me that I'm funny, or they think of me as like the funny friend, which every comedian says that. But yeah, that was, I guess, kind of the extent of it. I never really pursued it until about 2.5 years ago.
Were there ever any comedians or people in comedy, actors growing up that you really, really loved?
I guess I would have to be super basic and say Jerry Seinfeld. Just because I would always watch Seinfeld with my dad when I was a kid, so that was kind of just like the model version of stand-up comedy that I grew up with. Honestly, I didn't really watch stand-up comedy until I started doing it. Yeah, which is so weird. Like most people have like an extreme interest in it before they start doing it, and I was kind of just like, no, I think I'll try this one day. I still don't watch as much of it as I should. Like it's very good as a comedian to like use other comedians as like study material. But no, I mean, I've got some favorites now that I really look up to. I really like Sebastian Maniscalco.
That's great. Yeah.
I just love his whole persona. He's so ridiculous. Nikki Glazer, Taylor Tomlinson, the big ones.
When you were growing up and you were watching Seinfeld, were you watching the show or were you watching his stand-up? Or both?
I was watching the show.
Okay.
The only stand-up I really watched of his was the stuff that he does at the beginning of Seinfeld. And one of my friends recently told me, like, that's not what his like stand-up is actually like. That's a horrible representation of his real stand-up.
Yeah. What about him did you and your dad like? I don't know if you remember the show well, but what about that show or Seinfeld specifically was memorable?
I don't. It's just like they turned like like nothing. Just there'd be a whole show about nothing, which I don't know. I just think there's something very magical about that. It felt like it was very unscripted, even though it was a scripted show. I just love that. I don't know. It felt very like improvised. Does that make sense?
Sure. Did you have a favorite character?
I would have to say Elaine, just because she was the only girl.
Yeah.
And at that age,
and
I
a
was
bit
like,
of a boss.
Yeah.
I know you said you've been in the stand-up world for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Something like that. Talk to me about how that happened.
It was just one of those things where it kind of just hit me one day, like, I think that would be something fun that I'd like to try. And I remember I was on a road trip with a friend. We were going to her brother's wedding. And it was, there were a lot of like really creative people at this wedding because the bride and groom are very like creative people and they're actors, or one of them's an actor and one is a producer. And there were just all these creative people at this wedding. And I was there for 4 days just hanging out with all these people. We were talking about all the cool things they were doing and their awesome jobs. And they were all just like doing what they love. And I felt very inspired by that. And on the ride home, the road trip, the drive home, I signed up for my first stand-up class. And yeah, it's kind of just history from there.
Was that stand-up class something you found independently or was it recommended to you? What was it?
I just did some Googling.
Yeah. And
there are a few schools that come up if you Google. And the Comedy Cellar has one class. And it's instructed by Rick Chrome, have you heard of him?
Of course.
He's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
And I did end up taking a class with him later. But my initial class was with Manhattan Comedy School. And that's the one where at the end you get to get up and do a show at Gotham. And I was so freaking nervous for that show. And the night before I did an open mic and I totally bombed. Forgot everything. It was like deer in headlights. I got up there and I was like, I literally forget everything I was going to say. I think I said that. And I was just like, I was so discouraged afterwards. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this tomorrow. And I had like 60 people coming to watch me because everyone wants to see your big stand-up debut. And I was just like, I don't know if I can do this. And then I did it and I got my first laugh. And I was like, oh my God, this is the good stuff. And I remember walking off stage after my set and I was like, I need to do more of this. Like, this is what I want to do. And that feeling, I mean, I just chase that feeling now. And sometimes you get it and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you bomb and it's horrible and you want to die. But when it's good, it's like really good. It's just like, it's like a drug. It's like the best feeling.
How did you overcome the nerves to go through with it? I don't know if you were like throwing up or how bad it was.
I wasn't throwing up. Thank God. I did some jumping jacks before to try to get some energy out, I guess. And I remember my instructor, her name's Karen Beargreen, another hilarious comedian. She said that nervousness and excitement are the same thing in your brain. They emit the same chemicals. So just think of your nervousness as being excited. And that really helped me. Yeah. And I think about that a lot.
Yeah. Tell me about taking that class. Did you learn techniques or tactics or lessons that you think back on that really have helped you in your career as a stand-up?
It's interesting because we didn't really learn how to write jokes in that class. It's one of those things where you kind of just tell a story and then she gives you feedback based on the story. I'm like, here's where you should, this was funny. You should elaborate on that or like try it this way, do this. And it's interesting because I like I said, well, before when we were not on the podcast, I said that, oh fuck, now I just forgot what I was going to say. Oh no, I'm having flashbacks to that open mic.
Don't do this to me.
I totally lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
Well, after you got done, you had 60 people. Those were 60 people you invited who knew you, or that was 60 people in the crowd in total?
Oh no, there were like 300 people in the crowd, or like 250 people. Yeah. 60 of my friends, and then their friends and their friends, they all wanted to come. And I realized that I had made a big mistake after that, because there's this thing in the industry that you might be familiar with now called a bringer show.
Yes.
Yeah. So someone told me, a seasoned comedian after the show was like, "You're such a dumbass. Like you could have done like, 30 different shows and brought 2 people and done like 30 bringer shows. And you just used everybody on this one show."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember the joke? I know this is a while ago, but the joke that got the first laugh, that sort of broke the ice in your mind, that it sounds like once that first chuckle happened, you were able to kind of go with it?
I can't remember what I opened with, but I remember in that first set, I did a joke about this guy who sent me a dick pic on LinkedIn. Like, who does that, right? And I think the concept of that is just ridiculous.
This is a true story.
Yeah. And then, so I'll tell you the story if you want. This guy reached out to me on LinkedIn, and he's like, "I have a special project that I think you'd be great for." I was like, "Oh, cool. Like, tell me more details." And he like just says some bogus shit. And then he's like, "I'll send you some more materials on the project." And he sends me a dick pic. And then he got upset with me when I was upset about the dick pic. Like he got offended when I was like, "Why did you send me a dick pic?" He was like, "You didn't have to react that way." I'm like, "Well, I was expecting you to tell me about a project, not send me a picture of your dong." Like, I'm sorry if this is supposed to be a PG. Yeah, so we've been together for 5 years now. Is this a PG podcast? I forgot to ask.
Some are PG, some are X, some are R. It's all over the place. So the comedians are always, they're the worst. So
we can talk about all my dick stories if you want. But so yeah, once that joke got some good laughs, I was like, "Oh yeah, I could talk about this shit all day."
Before we move on, this guy was pretending to be a recruiter.
Yeah. And then like years later, he randomly messaged one of my friends, like one of my good friends on LinkedIn, with the same bullshit. And I'm just like, "Oh, this guy's still at it." Like years later, he's still just out here like spamming everyone with his dick pics. I don't know what he expected to come out of that. Like what, how has this ever gone, in his favor, where someone's like, "Oh my God, like, Is that your dick? Tell me more." Like, has that ever worked out for him?
In his mind, probably. It could. So after the LinkedIn story, you get done with that set, and you obviously crush.
Yeah.
Then what? Did you take more classes? Did you start signing up for more opportunities? What did you do?
Yeah, I am always in a class. I think this is where I was going to go with earlier when I forgot what the fuck I was talking about.
Circling back.
Yeah, I'm always in a class. It's a great way to test out new jokes, new material, get feedback, and then you get an awesome show at the end. So yeah, it also, I like that it holds me accountable. I am somebody who struggles to get up every morning and sit and write for an hour, or just write consistently in general. But if I have something like a weekly class, where there's a deadline and I'm like, I don't want to show up empty handed.
Yeah.
That motivates me to write. So it's just good. It keeps me engaged.
Did you also start signing up for random stand-up bar events and trying to get in at more formal venues consistently? How does that work?
I definitely could be more proactive than I am right now. A lot of comedians are like hustling, like they're out there like messaging clubs and bars and just like, producers of shows and asking like, can I have a spot?
Yeah.
I never do that. I don't know why. It just feels weird to me. I should be doing it and there's nothing wrong with doing that. It just, I don't know why it feels, it feels weird for me to ask someone if they can put me on their show. But luckily I get a lot of my shows, through people on like friends of friends, word of mouth, people, who see my Instagram and then they just message me on there to put me on their show. And then sometimes I'll enter into like a competition or, like Broadway Comedy Club does this show called The Industry Room where you bring 5 people and, it's an audition and, the booker, he gives, 1 or 2 people a residency that like his 2 favorite performers. And then you'll get like a month's worth of shows at Broadway Comedy Club. So I did that and I won. And so I got like 8 shows out of it, which was awesome. So I'll do some stuff like that. But yeah, it's hard when you get to a certain point because you've burned through all of your friends. Like my friends don't give a shit about my comedy anymore. They don't want to come see me. So
you were telling me about the Laughing Buddha as well.
Yeah.
Well, what is that for people who have never heard of it? And tell me about your experience there.
Yeah. I can't remember how many years they've been doing it. Like maybe 3 years. Actually, scratch that. I have no idea how long it's been going on. I think it's pretty new though. But it's an annual comedy festival, where I think they get like 600 submissions, and then they accept like, I can't remember the exact number, but maybe like 200, 150, 200 comics. And there's different rounds. There's your preliminary, and then the quarterfinals, semifinals, and then a final round. And that final show is limited to 12 people. And then there's 4 winners. And I have not been one of them.
So 4 out of the 12 are deemed winners.
So I've made it to that final show now 2 years in a row. And then I don't place. But it's okay because I get a participation ribbon.
If you do win that, is there some actual prize? Do you get a residency somewhere? Is there some opportunity that comes your way if you are one of the 4 winners?
Yeah. So the first place winner this year, they won, oh gosh, I think it was $3,000.
Oh, wow. And
a year's worth of monthly spots. So I guess 12 spots at Laughing Buddha shows. So it's a pretty good prize. And then it gets a little bit less for second, third, and fourth place, but they also get spots and money.
I don't know how defined your habits are with doing work for stand-up, but are you pretty religious about writing at a certain time every week to continue to get new material? How do you do that? How do you think about that?
Yeah, no. Literally every day I have a to-do list every day, and every day I put write and then a bunch of exclamation points, and every day I don't do it. I don't know. I cannot get into a routine, and I don't know what the solution is. Maybe I should ask ChatGPT to help me with this, but yeah. But then I'll like spend a couple of hours one afternoon and I'll just write like 10 new jokes and I'll just dump it all out on paper, and then that'll get me going again. I think it's like that with a lot of writers. Like writer's block, like you feel backed up creatively for a while, and then all of a sudden something clicks and it starts flowing out of you. I don't know why that happens. Do you know why?
I don't know why. But I know you were saying before we started recording that you're a writer. I mean, it's what you do for work. And I assume, been a writer for a lot of your life. I think you mentioned that you've always kind of been a good writer. How has that helped, if at all, with joke writing, with moving more into the stand-up world?
Did you put music on, or is that the air conditioning?
I think it's something going on outside.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know. I hear that too.
Oh shit, now I forgot my train of thought again. Okay, so yeah. Well, with technical writing, which is what I do for my day job, it's kind of different because I can't I can't have writer's block. Like I can't just not do my work.
Yeah.
But also technical writing doesn't really require a lot of creativity. So I guess I don't get that same writer's block as I do when I'm trying to work on jokes or like short stories. I've written some short stories as well. That's another. I haven't done that in a while, but that's another fun thing that I like to do when I feel inspired.
You were mentioning some of the other comedians who are your favorites.
Yeah.
I don't know if any come to mind, but others that are not as famous as like the Nikki Glazers of the world that you've seen in New York.
Yeah.
Do any come to mind of being people you've watched who you're just like, damn, you are so fucking good at this?
Yeah. Actually, I just met one of these people last night at a show. We were on the same show. Her name's Olga Namer. Have you heard of her?
No.
She, she's got a good following on Instagram. And I've seen a lot of her jokes on Instagram, and I always have kind of admired her from afar. Like she's just really funny. And I think I don't want to say we have a similar style, but we talk about like similar topics. Or she's a bit raunchy as well. And yeah, so it was really cool. I got to meet her last night and talk to her for a while, and yeah.
What the raunchy humor?
Yeah.
Has that always been your forte? What is it about that style of joke telling that is so appealing?
Gosh, yeah, no, I didn't realize how dirty my brain was until I started doing this. I don't know why. I think that type of humor is funny. I also think farts are hilarious, like bathroom humor. So like that is like the funniest thing to me. But yeah, I kind of have like I said, my parents, especially my dad, was very open with me as a child. Like I knew what sex was. Like I knew the intimate workings of sex when I was like first grade. It's like my dad just did this download on me. Here's all the shit that you should not know until you're a teenager. I'm just going to give it to you right now. He kind of set me up to be a raunchy comedian. My dad also, I have jokes about this. My dad also, my parents got divorced when I was 8, and he went through this phase where he was dating a lot. He was on eHarmony, and he went through this. Yeah, he would have me go through his matches for him and kind of like filter out the uglies like that. He had me like sort the hot ones that into a folder, or like the more desirable candidates into a folder for him, and then that's how he dated. And
so you're a matchmaker as well.
Kind of. But then he would take me on the dates with him. Yeah. So I've technically been dating since I was like 8.
You've seen a lot.
Yeah.
That is great material for comedy, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. My dad, he's a gold mine of material. Yeah. And we kind of, I don't want to say we lost touch. It was very intentional. Our relationship was very strained as I got older.
I wonder why.
Yeah, there's a lot that went on, but we didn't speak that much. And then he unfortunately passed away during COVID, not from COVID, but during, yeah. So, I don't know, but so I kind of, in a weird way, it's like I feel like I connect with him by telling all of these jokes about my childhood and that involve him. And I don't think he would be offended. I think we had a very similar sense of humor. I think he would feel very, I think he would laugh at my dad jokes. Well, I hope he would.
Do you look at your sense of humor and see it absolutely in his, that it's basically the same or very similar?
Yeah, he was quirky. He was really quirky. And I think that's kind of where I got my quirky sense of humor from.
Hmm.
Yeah, I can't think of any specific examples, but like we would have just always laugh at the same dumb stuff. Yeah.
In a perfect week, how many times are you getting up on stage?
In a perfect week, maybe like, well, there's how many times I should be getting up in a week and then how many times I actually do. Usually I only get up, like open mics and shows included, maybe 2 or 3 times a week. But there's a lot of comedians out there who are really going for it, who are doing like 5 open mics a night. I just don't have it in me. I can't do that. I should be getting up at least once a day though. You know,
you said should a couple times. Like,
yeah.
Is that, do you think you're wired for that? Is that really what you want? Or you just get the impression from being in New York that there are certain psychos out there that are working every night that many times? Like, what do you think fits for you?
I think that I'm pressured. I feel pressure to do that just because those are the people who really, you know, make waves, who really get noticed and who get on a lot more shows because they're out networking every night. But for me, like I said, offline, I am an introvert. So it's really draining for me, to be in social settings with a lot of people for a long period of time. So the idea of going to 5 open mics is just dreadful to me. And I've always told myself since I started doing this that if it becomes not fun for me anymore, I'm not going to do it. So I have to, even though I'm like, you know, working towards a future in doing this, I have to keep it fun for myself and not, feel overburdened or overly stressed out by it because I won't keep doing it.
You would start hating it.
Yeah. And I'd rather it just be a lifelong hobby than have that.
Yeah. You talked about the first time you got up on stage and how nervous you were. How nervous are you these days?
I don't really get nervous anymore. Maybe if like someone is in the audience, like my mom or someone is coming to watch me, I'll get a little nervous. But yeah, I don't feel those nerves anymore, which is great. I never thought that I would get to that point. And you get there pretty quickly. The problem is I feel so comfortable talking about these things that I talk about on stage that the lines are blurred in real life about what's appropriate to talk to people about. Like I had a job interview a while back and I forget. Yeah. They asked me about my hobbies or like if I had like what would be my dream job. And I just threw out, I was like stand-up comedian. And so they were like, tell us a joke. And I was like, should I tell them about my pubes? Like this. I was like, should I, or is that inappropriate? Like, are you kidding me? Like, don't talk about pubes on an interview. Like, luckily I caught myself, but there was a moment there.
Generally a no-no, I guess.
I wouldn't do that. Yeah.
You might not get hired.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I've always loved about stand-up comedy is the honesty. I think it's probably the most honest room I can think of that exists in a public space. I can't think of another outside of like having dinner with your best friend.
Yeah.
I can't think of another public venue that's filled with more truth and often awkward, uncomfortable truths.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you've thought about this, but what do you feel like you have a desire to talk honestly about subjects that are not acceptable in polite company at job interviews in corporate settings? Like, do you feel like you have sort of like a natural constitution for speaking on directly about weird things in life? Some of the subjects we talked about.
Yeah. I feel like that's such an interesting question. I feel like you have the freedom to talk about anything you want to talk about on stage, as long as, like you said, it's honest, and especially if it's vulnerable. Uh, um, and I think, that's probably the main thing that drew me to stand-up comedy. 'Cause I love talking about like my weird childhood stories, or like, weird dates that I've been on, but there are only a limited number of venues, like you said, to be able to talk about that kind of thing and get, a positive reaction from it, or a negative reaction. You never know.
Has it struck you as odd that more people don't have that orientation, that propensity for getting that off your chest, speaking that way, in general, you don't see that many people doing it.
Doing stand-up? Or just talking about...
Well, they kind of go hand in hand, but it kind of cuts through a lot of the bullshit of life, stand-up comedy. And I don't know if that resonates at all with you, of like, this is sort of the place where that is not acceptable, like bullshitting people or having a lot of fluff. Like, the audience can kind of feel that. And I think comedy, generally good comedy, is aligned with something that's true, typically. True and surprising, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know how you think about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the world would be a lot more fun if people just always spoke their mind and like told their stories. I feel like we hide so much of ourselves. And I wish, like everyone could understand that feeling of being free, just like letting it all out. Like, the world is your therapist.
Yeah. Do you think that has helped you be that way in real life? Like, the more stand-up you do and the more of a comfortable venue you have for being that vulnerable and direct and honest, that has also found itself to be common, or more common in your real life, that's helped reinforce that in just day-to-day existence?
I think comedy has been very, very therapeutic in that sense for me. It's easier to once you start, it's like the floodgates kind of open. Like, once you start, talking about personal stuff like that. And when you get to the point where you're comfortable talking about it in front of like 100, 200 people, talking with like one-on-one like this with somebody like you, like, it just feels like, you can ask me anything you want. I'm an open book. Yeah.
Have you gotten any pushback or cringe moments from your family who are not as comfortable speaking that way? I don't know if there are members. It sounds like you and your dad were kind of simpatico with this, but like, are there other family members that have come to your events or heard what you talk about and are mortified?
I wouldn't say mortified. I'm very lucky to have kind of an open-minded, fun-loving family. I will say my mom's very supportive, and she thinks my jokes are funny. So that's nice. But she definitely encourages me sometimes to, like, maybe you should write some cleaner jokes that will, that everyone can relate to.
Yeah.
Like, she's very supportive, though. I don't want to, trash talk my mom or anything. She's wonderful. But that's pretty much the extent of it. I'm very lucky to have a very positive, like, healthy support base.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you're an introvert. We talked a little bit about this before we started recording, and I had mentioned that it surprises me to hear you say, you had said that there are plenty of introverted comedians. I'd love to give a little time to just have you riff on that, on why you think that's the case and what it's been like for you to be an introverted comic.
Why I think that's the case, that a lot of stand-up comedians might be introverts.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, like I was, might initially feel surprised that that's the case, because they think of the Chris Rocks and the Eddie Murphys, these very charismatic guys. Yeah. But it also seems like it's a world for people that are shy.
Yeah. And I think, I think it's interesting to see different comedian styles, because there's so many different stage personas and styles of comedy that you can, like have on stage. And I think you can tell, I don't know, you can kind of tell a lot about a comedian just from how they present themselves on stage. Like my style is kind of deadpan, just like very matter of fact, kind of like just how I'm talking right now.
Yeah.
I don't really get animated on stage. But then there are other comedians who are just like spitting all over the place and like sweating and like, because they get so animated. But yeah, I can't remember if I said this on the podcast or off, but I love that the stage is a safe space for people to just be whoever they are, introvert, extrovert, and you can have a very low-key style or a very excitable style, and it's still comedy and you're still telling your story. And I love that stand-up gives everybody a platform. Anybody who wants to do stand-up can do it, especially in New York City. You can get up somewhere any night of the week and just go to an open mic, or if you have a couple of friends, go on a show. Like, I love that.
I always like to ask guests towards the end of the conversation about how they think about success for their career. And I know you're still relatively new in this world, but as you think about your future in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, what does the word success in stand-up for you mean? What's it look like?
For me, success, it just looks like continuing to write jokes and make people laugh. That's really all I want to do. Everybody has their dream of getting their own Netflix special. That would be cool if it happened. But I'm not really, I guess, banking on that happening. It's not something that I need to feel fulfilled. As long as I can I've made so many friends through stand-up. It's just such a fun community to be a part of, and just continuing to be in that and making new friends and making people laugh. That's kind of what success feels like to me. And that sounds really sappy. I apologize.
How is the community? How has the community been? And how is the stand-up community in New York City? It's
so fun. It's very supportive. Obviously, there's little cliques here and there, and, people can get competitive sometimes, but for the most part, it's very supportive. There's always somebody to hang out with. Like, you're never bored.
Yeah.
Somebody's always up to go to a show together, or you can always go watch one of your friends' shows. It's very cool. It feels like a huge, like, high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. Last question I'd love to ask you is about advice. I know we talked about this offline, but if you had a friend or you were talking to the younger version of yourself about entering the stand-up world here in New York, what have you learned about how to do that successfully or strategically to begin to have a life that involves being a stand-up comic? What knowledge matters for people that you've learned that you would share to a friend or a younger version of yourself?
Yeah, I would say just you don't really need to have a plan. Just get up and do it. Go, like, think of something like stupid or awkward or like ridiculous that happened to you, and just go tell a story and see how people react, and make note of how they react and which parts they react to. And from there, it's kind of easy to just build on that. And I would say get involved. I recommend taking a class.
Yep.
There's one of my really close friends. His name is Tom Eshelman. He has an amazing online course that he puts out, which actually walks you through like how to get into a bit, tools for writing jokes, like the different mechanisms that comedians use to write their jokes, and like he explains why they're funny, and it's a very helpful course. That's helped me a lot with my joke writing. So yeah, find a course or a class or something, and just get involved and meet people and have fun.
Which course would you recommend? I know you've taken a few. Like, what are, and maybe all of them, but which courses would you point people to as an intro in the beginning
Yeah.
would be a great first step?
I like Manhattan Comedy School for me because the classes are pretty big, like 15 to 20 people. So you get a really good gauge on whether your jokes are funny or not. But then, so that's the class I usually take. And they have them all the time. They're 6 weeks long. And then if you want something a little bit more intimate, but with more like structured feedback, the Comedy Cellar. And I've only taken that one with Rick Chrome. But he's great. If you want something, it's smaller, like maybe about 10 people in the class, sometimes less, but you get more feedback. Yeah. Those are the two.
Jessica, thank you.
You're welcome.